Welcome and thanks for joining us and supporting the mental health of our kids. So, this is something I am super passionate about. I know a few people's faces on the screen. Before I get into anything, I want to introduce one important person on the screen that's really championed my work and that I get the honor of working alongside of at the practice I'm a part of. So, Dr. Trito, do you want to jump in and just say hi to the group?
Sure. Hi, yeah, I'm Lisa Trito. I'm a pediatrician and I'm specializing in weight management for kids at Evora for kids. So Amanda and I work together quite a bit. And I just want to listen in and be here if anybody needs me.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And Mama Bears, I want to say thank you to you for slowing down on a busy summer night. Many of you might have had a full work day or a full day relaxing, so soaking summer up with your kiddos. So thanks for making this important. This went out to a lot of people, and I think there may be a handful of reasons why people don't join things like this. I'd actually be curious, is anyone brave enough to share with me from a parent perspective? Would anyone be willing to share? I'm going to do most of the talking tonight, but I was just curious before I forget. Do you have any thoughts about why parents might shy away from topics like mental health?
Maybe because they feel vulnerable about, it's almost there's a stigma that if there's a need that we as parents have failed in some way, or we take that on ourselves.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking as a mom and as a therapist, but I figured the more brains the better and just seeing, it's interesting. I have an average following on some social media pages and feel very loved by the community that I have. And if I say anything about mental health, sometimes it goes pretty quiet. And so there's something going on there. And obviously it's very stigmatized, but it's also critical for our kids. So I just, if you, um,
Yeah, they've today. So they're gonna do it every day now.
Sorry, let me see if I can. Would you guys mind, just because I can't see you all, would you mind muting your audio unless you want to hop in and share? I wish I could do it, but I'm kind of rusty with my Zoom skills. Thank you. So yeah, Jenna, I would agree. My thoughts are the same, but it won't quiet me in the work, but I would totally agree as a parent myself. We can feel a lot of feelings around why our child might be struggling with X, Y, or Z. And as parents, it always typically comes from a place of love when we're trying to lead our family, and we can feel like maybe we went wrong, or they learned this from us, or they have this because of us. So I think it's kind of easy to shy away from out of fear or just overwhelm. Um, so I just thought I'd mention it because it just seems to be a trend, and I think it's something we have to continue to kind of break through to best support our kids. So speaking of kids, I have a few pictures in my presentation, but the first one is actually of my own kiddo. So I have a little boy who is newly 7 years old. I have a little girl that I can't believe is already 5, and I have a little 28-week-old preemie that's growing up and is already over 2. So I'm kind of in the trenches where they're still pretty reliant on their mom, but they are growing like weeds every day. And I'm sure you can relate that once you think you have it figured out, you blink and they're even bigger. So it's just a learning curve all around. And I'm sure you guys can all relate in that. So that's my crew. They keep mama busy. I'm very part-time in my work. I work Wednesdays and Thursdays all day and a little bit Saturday mornings. I see a lot of students in the morning on Saturdays, but they're my world, and it keeps me really present in my work, having my own kids and knowing some of their struggles and what I'm seeing in the community. So those are my littles. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, just so you know kind of who you're partnering with tonight. And if there's ever a time where you want to hop in and share, I would love that. My voice will be pretty heavy tonight, but if there's ever a time where you want to pop in and share something, I would encourage that. And if you want to sit back and relax and listen, that's a-okay too. So you do whatever is comfortable for you. But sometimes you have a burning thing you want to share, and I'd love to hear it. So I mentioned here, talking about mental health could save a life. That's a very basic statement, but it's incredibly true. I've seen it happen in my own practice. And the conversation tonight is to help inspire you to feel more comfortable in your own home to help serve your own children or your child. So I am Amanda Ratz. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a certified K to 12 school counselor. I worked with kids of all ages, age 5 through senior year of high school. And I'm a mom of 3. So that lens in itself has given me some incredible insights. I started off my career in a great school district in central St. Louis. I started off in alternative high school, so I was working on some of the most critical cases. I was contracted in through an agency called Preferred Family Healthcare, and I worked with some wonderful students that were part of a program called the Student Success Center. So they were working, it was actually a house the district owned next to the high school. And it was a smaller community, about 12 students, and they really thrived just in a smaller community. And I've always had a wish that there was an alternative school for kids K to 12 because I believe there's a small population of kids that could use just a smaller vibe. They've got a lot of things going on. They're having a hard time kind of accessing their education based on what's going on socially and emotionally. And so that was a really precious opportunity to see those kids thrive in that scenario. And some of those cases I worked on were pretty critical. So in saying that, I worked alongside many parents at that end of the spectrum because some of the cases were more critical. And so obviously I was involving parents in that wraparound support and the things that were helping children thrive in some of our work together, and then kind of carrying home need to know information at that age. So that gave me some good kind of indirect or some kind of direct work with parents that I didn't even know I'd be working that closely with. So I feel like I had an opportunity to work with parents and know their struggles and how it was hard on them to support their child at that age and those struggles. And then shortly after my time ended in that school year, the school district I was contracted into hired me on to be a school counselor, actually, all the way at the end of the spectrum, at the kindergarten, first, and second grade level, which was really exciting for me. I didn't know I was going to go quite that young. I was looking more elementary age kiddos, but it was actually a perfect opportunity for me to share my gifts, which are looking at behavioral practices that can be more proactive with mental health. So before a child's in crisis, before their mental health starts to slide or slip, just to put daily things into practice to help support them proactively with their mental health so they can stay well mentally. So I was able to get into 18 different classrooms and teach them skills. And I'll never forget one day I was standing at recess and I saw some girls kind of meditating in the grass and I'm like, "Hey guys, what are you doing?" They're like, "Hey, Mrs. Ratz, like you showed us how to do this in the classroom. We're doing it." And I'm like, to see the skills transfer from the school, comprehensive guidance lesson to the playground was kind of an eye-opening experience. And I got to see them pull their tools out, throughout the day. So that was really precious. So in saying that, and working with the youngest learners, then I didn't take too many steps without their parents because they were so little. Mom and dad kind of needed to know what was going on at school, what we were working on, what was pulling them out of class, and how we could get them more class time and get them more tools socially and emotionally to best access their education. So I share that to say I got a lot of good experience with parents in my school counseling career based on the ages I was working with. And I think that would probably be true for most school counselors. I actually also got more clinical practice than many counselors do. I worked in a small district and I didn't do any scheduling like middle school or high school counselors do. So I spent a lot of my time. It was hard to find me. I was usually in the classrooms, out and about, all over the place, but I did spend a lot of time slowing down to be face to face with kids one on one, and that's where my skills are served best. So after 7 years, I shifted to I had a really traumatic pregnancy and birth that landed me in Mercy Hospital for 5 months, which was really eye-opening because I saw the lack of mental health care in hospitals, which really inspired me to be really thoughtful about where I went next, which landed me in a practice where we slow down and listen to patients and really wrap our arms around adults and children. So that experience has helped me deal with a lot of medical trauma with people facing cancer diagnoses and all kinds of things based on that unexpected turn with my own health that I was able to overcome. So that is kind of my background and what fuels my passion. I just want to save lives. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 34, and we need to start talking about it more. So I will keep sounding the alarm. So, any questions for me before we get started? Sorry, I can't see most of you, but yell at me if you have any questions before I keep sharing. Alrighty. Around. Of course, my slides don't want to advance. There we go. Okay. So in week 3, I'm going to focus on I'm doing this little talk series for 3 weeks. So on the 25th, the focus is going to be on like tangible, practical strategies that you can kind of take home and kind of have a menu of options for your child to kind of engage with. Really, I'm kind of giving away all that I do in therapy for free in one night, because all parents should know all the tools and then be able to fine tune what works best for your child. So this is just one example that I felt led to pull out for you guys tonight. You could have been anywhere else tonight, but you saw my post, you saw the information and thought in some capacity it was important for you, especially in regards to your child. So if we had more time, I'd ask you to come up with these on your own, but I created them for you, kind of thinking of them through your lens. So I'm just going to read through them with you, and I hope one of them resonates with you, if not all 3. I am prioritizing my child or my children and growing my knowledge and support of mental health. I am finding support in what can be an overwhelming topic. I am learning not to always blame myself for what my child is being challenged with. And I can speak from experience that I created those myself because they resonate with me. But when our child is struggling, we have so many thoughts like, we've created this beautiful life, we've tried our best, we've done so much. How could they be depressed? Why are they so anxious? Why do they seem unhappy? As a parent, we can be really critical, and we know that the mind can be more negative than it can be positive. So I would encourage you to stop for a minute and, if it's not this moment, maybe after we get off Zoom tonight or in the near future, to make sure you're slowing down to celebrate your wins in parenthood, because there's no doubt we know when we slip up, when we misstep, and when we overreact and things like that. But it's incredibly important that we keep our own bucket full, because we know we can't pour from an empty cup, and it's easier said than done. But we have to not only be doing this actively to stay mentally strong, but it's important to model it in front of our kids. Something I started doing a few years ago, and I try to be consistent with it, is just have my kids come up with one thing they're grateful for, just one a day, and add it to this big jar. And then on New Year's Eve, we usually turn it over and look at all the things we're grateful for. And sometimes it can sound cheesy and silly, and does that really matter? It matters a ton. It's teaching kids to not always just see the negative at things, because they can be so internally critical and just notice anything that's a threat in our society, whether it's on the news or in the classroom or on the playground. Our brain is wired to protect us. So it is picking up on those negative things and holding on to them longer. So things like this, whether it's for yourself or for your child, are really protective in regards to mental health. I do just want to mention kind of where this information is coming from. It's coming from my experience and practice as a mom, as a school counselor, and as a therapist in private practice with adults and kids. And I just want to highlight Evora. They've been so supportive of my work. I wouldn't be where I am in my career without all the behind the scenes work, the champion of this important topic that can be so easily shied away from. So I just kind of want to highlight where we are, what we do, and how this important work is going to continue to evolve. So we started out as Evora for Women. We had Evora for Men. We became Evora Medical Group. And then kind of organically, separate from my work, they developed a concierge care model just for kids and teens, which I honestly don't know another one. There may be one. I'm not familiar with it, but we are a concierge care practice for kids and teens. And it's just really exciting to see us slow down and sit with more kids in these different capacities and really serve the whole child, which aligns closely with what I did in the school system. We had these amazing meetings for kids that were identified that needed them, and we always talked about the whole child. What's going on? Where's this behavior coming from? What do they need? So this whole child approach fits really well with my mindset on how to best help kids. So we serve kids with weight management. Dr. Trito does that amazing work, which is newer to the office, which is awesome. And I get to partner alongside her in that. I do the therapy. I do individual therapy with adults and kids. I also do group therapy, and there's been a little bit of a barrier of just getting kids in the room at the same time based on their busy schedules with sports and then thinking about, with 2 or 3 or 4 other kids in the family, all of their sports. So I'm just trying to find a way to get kids all in the room so we can have some effective long-term groups. But that is really powerful for kids to have them sit in groups together and know they're not alone. We have nutrition counseling with Audrey. We have personal fitness with Joni. We have chiropractic and acupuncture with Dr. Brian. We have energy medicine with Catherine, primary care with Dr. Fatak, who's amazing. She serves 15 plus, psychiatry with Dr. Kazi, 15 plus. She's been an awesome partner right here in the office to partner with kids and adults. And then fearless leader, Dr. Lynn, serves our population with gynecology and a lot of menopausal specific work too. And she sees 15 plus. So just so you know where this is coming from, who we are, I wanted to highlight that. And we are in City Place 5, which a lot of people know that area off New Ballast and Creve Coeur. And we're at avoraforkids.com, which is pretty easy to remember. So we put out a lot of things about all these different topics, and we'll probably pull a lot of information from this presentation and kind of keep it coming at people that missed the presentation on our different platforms. Okay, so leading us into where we are tonight. So I wanted to create space for parents to have more education around mental health, specifically because we are on the front line. So we can send our kids to therapy, we can make sure they're included in sports and staying well connected with peers. But the truth is, we have our eyes on kids the most. So we actually have to learn some tools to have in our back pocket to support them most often. So I wanted to create space to share the tools that I've created over the years and to share some kind of generic things I've learned about kids, things they're struggling with, and kind of how you can wrap around those ideas to better support you at home. So this comes from my school counseling lens, but aligns well with what I see in private practice. Children's mental health directly impacts their social, emotional, behavioral, and academic functioning. And obviously, their mental functioning is woven into all of those capacities. But when and if our child's mental health starts to slip, it can really bleed into their entire life. So you think about how that impacts them socially and how they can start to withdraw. You think about how emotionally they're showing up more closed off, more shut down. You think about behaviorally how they're acting out, how they're coping negatively. How they're choosing different friends, just how that shows up for them. And then academically, we know that they can really disengage, maybe be going to class late, not going at all, and just really have a hard time accessing their education when they are struggling, whether it's anxiety, depression, the overlap of ADHD, OCD. There can be a lot of barriers in their way. So that's why parents need to have so many tools at home. This is kind of a very separate thought, but something I wanted to note in my slides. If you can think back to your earlier days, actually, I'm going to pause. I totally forgot something. Can you kind of hop on really quick and tell me what age? You don't have to tell me names or anything, but could you quickly pop on and just kind of jump in and share what age your kiddos are, just so I kind of know like what population I have here in case I want to add something else in. Jenna, you want to start?
Sure, I'm Jenna. I have a 14-year-old and 16-year-old at home.
Okay, and then anyone else can jump in if you just want to unmute and kind of share just ages of kiddos.
Yeah, I'm Caitlin, and I have a 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, an almost 4-year-old, and an 18-month-old.
Okay, thanks, Caitlin.
I have a 23-year-old and a 26-year-old, but my patients range from 5 to 25.
There you go. Thanks, Dr. Trudeau.
Mhm.
This is Katie, and I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Okay,
This is Wen, and I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old.
okay. Is that everybody? Sorry, I can't see your lovely faces. Thanks so much. Actually, a little bit younger population than I randomly assumed. So thank you so much for kind of letting me know what population we're talking about and with tonight. And we know that our kids are only going to get older. So, and I would just say this might surprise you, but I actually don't change anything about therapy with a 5-year-old or a 78-year-old. And I kind of love that because it just shows you that we all need the same things. Do we approach it with the exact same language? No, but I literally use the same exact strategies to rewire the brain, increase neuroplasticity, and increase positive mental outcomes for the entire lifespan is exactly the same. I was teaching kindergartners the same thing I was teaching 18-year-olds, and I love that because it's very versatile, and you'll find people of all different ages that just don't have the tools, and we all kind of need the same thing. We might have different needs, but we all need to have some basics with our self-esteem and our inner voice and those type of things. So you won't really hear me say like from 5 to 8 do this or anything like that, but there are basic things we need to have in our toolbox to really thrive mentally and be able to overcome barriers when we find ourselves having to cross over kind of harder bridges. So when we think back to our early days in parenting, and some of us aren't that far removed from it, but if you think back to those early days, we quickly learn that we need to be nurses, doctors, chauffeurs, chefs, maids, and we also have to be mental health professionals for our kids. I know that as a young mom, we're at home, we're Googling things, we're deciding, are we going to treat this fever with Tylenol? Are we going to rotate ibuprofen? Are we not going to treat it at all? Does this rash need to be looked at, at a sick visit? Or are we going to ride it out for a day? Are we going to call the nurse's line? We're making so many decisions about physical health to keep our kids alive, to keep them healthy, and to keep them thriving. And we're responsible for responding when we see things that stand out to us because we see them every day. So, in considering all the hats that we're wearing, I recently, before I set this up before, but I recently attended a suicide awareness training that you'll hear me bring up across the next few weeks. And an overarching theme in that presentation was that, as parents, we really do kind of have to have some good mental health skills to best support our children, especially as rates of anxiety and depression and suicidality are rising. You could go in and see a mental health professional. A child's not actively suicidal, they're not considering suicide, and that could change, in the weeks in between therapy. And so we do our best as clinicians to have that storytelling dialogue when kids are working with us, but things can change. So I just encourage you to stay vigilant at home, to gather more tools, and to just stay present with your kids. One other disclaimer, this can get heavy, and I'm not preaching this in a way that I have more tools than you, or this is what you have to do, or you have to do all these things. It can feel overwhelming, but it's not meant to. I just want to provide a menu option of things that you could pick 1 or 2 things that you think might support your child and just have some more tools in your toolbox. We're not going to use all these tools in one setting or maybe even ever. But I want you to know what's available for you in conversations to approach mental health and to feel better armed. So that's kind of the disclaimer, like not here to overwhelm, not here to create fear. But on the other hand, when kids drowned and we're quick to get them to swim lessons after a near drowning or just to prevent drowning, we're looking for layers of protection around the pool. Do they have their life vest? Have they been to ISR? Whatever your values around swimming are, how can we keep them safe and out of the pool, or safe and on their back floating till help arrives? We have to do the same thing with mental health. We just need to talk about it more. And we need to normalize it, that it's, we talk about a tooth pain or a jaw pain or an elbow pain. This is a brain pain. It's, all encompassed in our head. It's just a little bit north of some of these other things are just regular ailments. So I just encourage the conversation to be way more normal than it feels all around, in support of kids and in support of us. We have mental health challenges too. And if our mental health is struggling, it can really impact our child. Okay, any questions? I'm very passionate, so I can go, go, go. Okay, there's a lot of different angles I could have gone, kind of opening up this series tonight. I just put what was on the forefront of my mind that I thought could be helpful to just, my goal, aside from not wanting to create fear, not wanting to overwhelm, is to, one takeaway, if I don't re-mention it, in my practice, I'm very big on creating awareness and intentionality. And if you can keep those 2 things close to your heart, you really can't go wrong. It's when we get too busy, we're spread too thin, and we become desensitized to what our kids are struggling with, where we can find ourselves in a little bit of trouble. So intentionality and awareness are really important. So when we think about environment, it's when we're talking about talking to our kids about mental health, or more so, not even the conversation and what it entails, but just how, when would we approach this? I know I'm making it sound more stigmatized when I present it, but we can just shy away from it altogether and kind of cross our fingers and hope they're going to kind of snap out of it. But sometimes that's not always the case. So when we think about the environment, we want to think about what is safe and comfortable. When are they thriving? When are they lower stress? When are they more reachable? Think about that within your home with your different age kiddos. Um, Something I like to share with parents, just because it's kind of common nature to me in my practice, but might be something new for you. Especially, actually, this can go for all ages, but especially little kids. You'll never find me one-on-one with a child of any age, sitting across a chair, just like very back and forth, reciprocal conversation that puts too much pressure on the therapeutic environment. It creates, I mean, when people are coming to therapy initially and maybe throughout the process, it can be intimidating, it can be heavy. You might not know if you feel safe, you might not know if you're going to share the big thing. You have to really create this environment that is open and nurturing and non-judgmental. And so we have to do that in our own home. So with younger kids, I definitely would have a trick up your sleeve. I have this, the staff laughs at me. I don't know if you can you see this? I don't know where I went. I'm not a Zoom expert. Can you see this little guy? I don't know where you're looking.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. He's very squishy. You would think like a 5-year-old would love him, but people have actually adults even enjoy him more than kids. I don't know how that could be, but even if they're like, oh, that's a nice thought, I like put it on their lap. I'm like, just give it a squeeze, because just giving it a squeeze and having some weight and some pressure to kind of hit or whatever you have to do to share your heart can be so helpful. So I get him out. He's so fun. Um, $5 at the Dollar Tree, by the way, and they're still on the shelves unless I buy them all. But something, especially a little kid, can just take the pressure off. Like, okay, like if it comes up, it comes up, but give them something to play with while you're talking, or something to draw. Like, what is their thing? What's gonna, make them feel at home? With an older child, I would say go on a walk. Like you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're modeling, how to take care of their health and especially their mental health, because you definitely get those benefits when you're out on a walk or a run. But that environment can be so much less intimidating or pressurous, especially if there's, some tension going on in the relationship just based on their age and how they're kind of turning more inward or to their friends. So think about like when you're going to create this space. I also want to mention, make sure with like a plant, make sure they're fed, watered, rested, calm. You don't want to approach them when they're already ticked off and when they're, you know them best, but just make sure, like for some kiddos, especially little ones with ADHD or high anxiety, they need their basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs met before we can even like go there. It's too much. It's overstimulating. It's going to go south. And so we want to make sure if we're offering the space, we're being mindful of it, that we can have an opportunity to show them the best support. Does that make sense? Is this stuff resonating? Okay. Okay. And please jump in and cut off my voice if you need to. I would love to hear from you. Okay, when we think about response, this will take me a few minutes to talk through. Some of these things will be a review for you, but maybe you'll think outside of the box with your response. So there is so much therapeutic power in validating someone's feelings. There's a lot of people of all ages that kind of gaslight themselves about their feelings. They'll say things like, am I psycho? Am I crazy? Like, have you ever heard this before? It's a very basic human reactions to hard challenges. We can be resilient, but the human response to be depressed or anxious in a variety of scenarios is actually kind of normal in many scenarios. So validating your child's feelings that, hey, I notice, what you're sharing sounds really hard. You did such a great job handling that, and just validating what they're going through and just how they're walking through it, because there's no perfect way. Thinking about your gentle tone and mindful language, as parents, we want to offer so much wisdom and guidance, and we want to model things, but sometimes it can be a little bit preachy, a little bit disciplinarian, or like you should do it this way. And I would just say, think about your tone, thinking about how you're matching their energy. And if I don't weasel it in at any other point, remember, this is really critical. Remember, I've learned this as a parent, but I remind myself in practice a lot. Remember that, yes, we're bringing, especially older children, we're bringing them guidance. We're trying to grow them to leave the nest and be ready to fly, but we have to remember where they are developmentally in their brain. The brain is not fully developed at least till 25, and sometimes they say even older. But 25 is kind of like Dr. Raymond's magic number, but they're always evolving. So if you're talking to a 17-year-old, if you're talking to a 13-year-old, if you're talking to a 7-year-old, just remember you're not talking to a 39-year-old. They don't have the same life experience. They don't have the same skills. They might be in a really hard, challenging moment. So just when you're feeling like you're starting to dysregulate, you're frustrated, they're shutting down, you're shutting down, just remember, as Rat said, you're talking to a 7-year-old brain, and it's got 3 times more time to fully develop. So just kind of, that's a good reminder when we get into these power conflicts or things like that. We're just trying to lead out of love, but it's important to remind ourselves kind of where we are in that conversation and in that developmental level. Listen to understand with curiosity. We're not listening to respond. We're listening to be curious. We want them in the suicide training. We want them to story tell. We don't have to ask a million questions. There's kind of this double-edged sword of, like, my little 7-year-old. I've taught him as a coping skill when he's really dysregulated to ask for a hug. I'm like so proud of that, because he'll be so dysregulated and say, Mom, I need a hug. And that's my cue. Like, oh boy, like, but what a great skill, I'm like, every time I hear it, I'm like, yes. But that's so, well, it's regulating for me in the moment, it's regulating for him. And it sounds funny, but when we raise our babies and they're, skin to skin with us, there's a real thing scientifically about that co-regulation. And that's really powerful if you can find that, whether you have a 7-year-old or you have a 17 or a 13-year-old, to find, well, how can you regulate? Can you grab their hand? Can you offer them a hug? Kids are going to have all different needs in that regard, but what is it? How can you connect with them and reach them in a way that'll be supportive to them? So listen with curiosity. Be okay not having all the answers or the right words. In the school I worked in, I made the hardest phone calls home. Our administrators were incredible, but they would turn over some phone calls to me, no doubt, just because the hard on the other side, when you're calling a parent about the trickiest things that happen in a school, you have to be really skilled in how you show up for that parent, because you could really knock them off their chair if you don't prepare them well. Um, and I learned, that we don't even always have the right words, and parents will say, well, what should I say? And I didn't always have the right words, but I just tried my best with the skills I had. I was just human, and tried to offer some supportive ideas, but sometimes just giving it a try and just being human and just doing the best you can is a-okay. So there's a balance of not having too many words and offering maybe a hug, or maybe just listening can be like number one support sometimes, just sitting in the space, letting them just feel all their feelings. And then times where you do need to be courageous and just, have a little dialogue, but you don't have to have all the right answers. Ask open-ended questions and encourage them to share their experience back to that storytelling. We want them to have open dialogue about their mental health, whether it's with us, their dad, another trusted adult or professional. We do not want them carrying their story all by themselves. And they will grow and learn how to carry parts of it, but we do not want them isolating and staying in their own head. That can be a really unhealthy place, and the bags can get too heavy. This was so cool. I was sitting in a meeting when I was a school counselor, and this came from a parent. They said, I'm vulnerable with my kid. I tell them that, exactly what I said, offer age-appropriate vulnerability about your own feelings and experiences, such as how you regulate your own emotions and tend to your own mental health. So back to the age-appropriate piece. thinking about what does your child know about this? Do they have any exposure to this content? You know, how can you say, well, when mommy needs to cool off, I've told my kiddos, sometimes I just step out on the front porch and take a deep breath and get some fresh air, you know, being in nature and hearing the birds chirp, that helps mommy calm down. Um, Sometimes I like to go on a walk. Do you want to come with me? I'm going to take a walk and just kind of reset. Do you want to come? So you could tell them what you do, and then you could invite them to do it with you and kind of do it together. That's really an opportunity. So just some ideas and thinking about our response when we engage in these conversations, whether they're 5 or 25. I think the tools are very similar. You're going to meet them in a different developmental place. You know, a 7-year-old might be mad and shut down and ready to run out the front door. An 18-year-old could maybe do the same thing, but you know, you're going to meet them in different places where they're like this to you, you know, at all different ages. So you kind of know when to approach them, but feel free to jot those down as tools. Any questions as I keep throwing my passion at you?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you encourage, like, what do you do when their feelings are too big? Like encouraging them to like identify what they're feeling or helping them find words for what they're feeling. Would that be that in this realm of?
Yeah, absolutely. You could offer them, do you feel one of these 3 things? You don't have to give them like a whole wheel of things they have to sort through, but you could, you know, maybe pick something you think it is, something that might not fit, and they can kind of say, yeah, it's that. I'll tell you, a lot of kids struggle to identify what they're feeling and why they're feeling that way of all ages. It shocked me how many kids came into my office and they didn't know why they were there. They didn't know what happened. They got to this emotion and they couldn't. But you know how frustrating that feels as an adult to kind of be in a funky mood and not know what got you there? That makes me upset. Um, so yeah, learning how to feel it in their body. Where do they feel it in their body? That's something I do a lot of work with brain spotting with adults and kids, is learning about where the trauma or emotion is felt in your body so that we can kind of get it out. And then verbally, it's so powerful to be able to identify what it is and what we can do about it. How can we get you feeling better to get back to class? How can do we need to send that friend a text, give them a phone call? You know, sleep on it for the night. What do we need to do to move forward to get you feeling better, or to, you know, help that friend be heard if you're not sure if you should send the text back or whatever. So yeah, just stopping and asking them to name their emotion and just learn more about, you know, what are emotions and what are the different menu options, so they just know what they're feeling and why. So thanks for asking. Okay, these are some themes that I wanted. Let me check my timing. These are some themes that have come up, honestly, maybe even with just a few kids, but I think they're so pivotal. They were so monumental in the moment when I was with different kids that I wanted to share them with you, because I don't think they're specific to just these children. I think these are really critical things that could help support a lot of different kids. So they're similar things, but kind of very different. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little storytelling in general about some experiences I've had. So um, and this is coming from the lens of what are kids saying and needing, and how can we show up on the other side when things are kind of invisible. So checking in about your child's or adolescent's mental health. There's a lot of healing in being able to share their heart and not having to carry such heavy bags alone. So I'll use the example. We recently did a staycation in St. Louis last weekend, and we're kind of carrying the bags out of the back trunk for a few nights stay. And um, it's just kind of metaphor kind of came to me. You know, I could see my little guy carrying a bag that was like way too heavy, and I could have just let him struggle through it and kind of probably topple over. But I noticed that the physical bag was technically too heavy, that he grabbed it and it was like weighed more than him. But to like safely cross the street, get through the door, get on the elevator without causing a scene, it was like, hey, buddy, like, let me grab that. That looks a little too heavy for you. And he was like, oh, I got it, I got it. And then he was like, oh, can you take it? It's way too heavy. I'm like, sure, bud, I can help with that. But I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like it might seem so silly to you, but as a counselor, I'm like, wow, like I could see that physical bag and that was too much. So I could do the motherly thing, take it off his back and like lighten his load. But then, of course, what do you think I was thinking? What about the bags we can't see? What about the invisible? Like it makes me kind of get choked up when I think about like my own kids and clients I see, like what are in those invisible bags? What are you carrying? We really don't know. So we have to ask about them. We have to ask what's inside of them. And we have to we have to show them that we can help carry them too. I was sitting with a little girl. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. I don't do this in practice, but it's just I'm very passionate about it, and I say it mom to mom. I was sitting with someone that was not actively suicidal, but they were feeling suicidal. A great school district did a kind of a screener, and it flagged, and they have this great amazing process that they find counselors quickly to help support these kiddos. And I'll tell you what, there's way too many kiddos getting flagged in this regard, but this little one felt like taking her life could be an option down the road if there wasn't some intervention. And when they just shared their story with me, that they were feeling suicidal, if you would have sat there and saw with your mama bear eyes, like the weight that was lifted from this child's soul, just in saying like, I had this feeling, but is it okay to tell you? There's a lot of fear you're going to rush them to the hospital. They weren't actively suicidal, but it definitely needed to be talked about with mom and dad, and there needed to be a plan. There needed to be active next steps into how we can get them feeling healthier and kind of out of the darkness. And I remember, sitting with them and saying, okay, we need to talk to mom. You want to do it together? You want me to do it? And kind of made a plan. But it was so powerful for me to see just in that moment. And I've seen it with other kids, but that was like really monumental. How just getting that. Imagine if it was you and you're in a 13-year-old body and you felt that way. Imagine how heavy that bag would be, and maybe how many hallways you carried it through, and how scary it could be to be feeling that way, that you were a threat to yourself. So I just say that our kids are carrying around different bags. They're not all carrying bags that heavy, but some of them are, and we don't even know it. So I would encourage you to pay close attention and just wonder what is in your child's invisible bag. Any questions on that one? Was that metaphor helpful? Okay. Whew. Creating regular, consistent space where a child or adolescent can come to you if there's something they need to share with you. So this also came from a kiddo I was working with. They shared something. This was not in a therapeutic setting. That I have a few different licenses, so they're always in my back pocket. They don't really go away. And I wasn't in a therapeutic setting, but I was in a different role where I always have to follow my ethics and things. And so they shared something that their parent needed to know, and kind of like blindsided me. And I knew exactly how to handle it, if that's a thing. But I remember in the conversation, I said, okay, let's talk about this, unfortunately, I know you trusted me to tell me, but we do need to like share this with your parents. I'm sure you understand. And of course, that's always a thing, but I was able to kind of navigate that. And I just said, when do you think that you could talk to them about this? When would be a good time? And I was so excited because the person was like, oh, my mom, she always has this time with me and my sisters where we can share hard things. And there was kind of like an identified family meeting where they could tell this hard thing. And of course, I disclosed it to them before that, but I wanted to have a plan where they could have a voice and share that. And the mom handled it really well. But that was monumental too. That was a showstopper for me. It's like that child. What if that child's parents didn't offer? And I don't say this to be like, oh my gosh, you're not doing that. This is just like these are inside tips from someone that spends a lot of time with kids listening to the heart. So I'm giving you these snapshots to say, is there any way you could open up space to maybe offer space that your child would know, like when that time is in your house, in your four walls? Is it with a younger kid? Some ideas could be at bath time when things are kind of getting more peaceful, more calm, you're getting the bubbles out, it's playful. You could just check in and just say, like, honey, how are you feeling in your heart or in your brain? And you can learn out, there's a slide that kind of explains mental health versus physical health, but just be very clear about it. And they might be like, what do you mean? And you can kind of share it in your own kind of family value way. But I thought it was critical that that person had a time where they could go to their person and say, this hard thing is coming on, and I'm starting to cut, and I don't understand why, and like I'm afraid I'm going to do it again, and something like that. So are we creating regular, consistent spaces where children know in our own home that they can come to us So I know that sounds like compartmentalized, but as a busy mom that just works part-time, I don't know if you guys can relate, and I really wish I could see all your faces. I will figure that out before next time. We're spread thin, some of us have two parent working households. Some of us are, out in the community volunteering. We're got our head down with multiple kiddos, and the day can fly by. What do they say? Like the years are long, but the days are wait, what is it? The days are short. What is it? What's the thing?
The days are long, but the
Yes.
years are short. I
Thank
don't know.
you. You know what I mean? Like we have our head down, we're doing the thing, but in considering mental health, these are ideas that I hope can just increase, your thoughts as you continue to pivot in parenthood and grow, and we do our best. So that was creating regular space. This is similar but different. So now you have the regular space where you're offering that sensitive kind of lens. Uh, there's no discipline. There's no like preachy. You should do this. You should do that. That chore's got to. There's nothing like that. It's just a very soft, like, how are you? It's all about them. But in that same space, are we emotionally available visibly as a parent so the child or adolescent can come to us and open up about their needs? We could be I hope this makes sense. We could be creating space, and it doesn't have to be like the same time every day, but it needs to be like, oh, before bed when dad's rubbing my back, reading a book, or at bath time, or some middle age kiddos, elementary age, or like I feel most energized around dinner time. I've had time to decompress. I am more able to talk. I'm going to go into that in a second, but when you create this thoughtful space as you can, regularly, it doesn't have to be every day, but regularly, are you emotionally available to receive or support that need? Or because we're human, are we chronically stressed? Are we caught up in our head about, our marriage? Are we struggling financially and our kids are feeling that weight? How available are we? Because we are human and we will let it all hang it out sometimes. I'm a real human over here on the side of the screen, and things can get really hard. So kids can feel like they don't, I've come across this numerous times where they don't want to burden their parent. They don't want oh, my mom's going through a lot. Oh, my dad travels a lot and my mom, they see that. So we just have to make sure, even if it's a little bit of a mask, that we are showing up as available as we can. Any questions about that? Yeah. I was thinking about one more thought. What did Oh, I've had parents get a little bit offended, and I've been this parent where I've crossed the line and done the wrong thing with this one. Parents, especially little kids like me, they're like, especially when it's like the first year of kindergarten, it's like you've waited all day to hear about that day, and you are ready to pump out the questions when they get in the car, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's like a loving parent that just wants to know how their child's like thriving in kindergarten. But some kids can eat that up and tell you all the things. Some kids, it is a no-go. They are overstimulated. There is an incredible amount of demands on kids. I worked at a great school. They are under a lot of demand. It's just we've got to keep the school running smoothly, kind of like hands to yourself, or walk in this way, or quiet in the hallways. There's just a lot of demand. And some kids kind of nail that, and other kids have to work really hard to kind of fit in with the demands of the school day, and that's just how it is. But some kids at the end of school pickup are they just need time to breathe. They just need to decompress. So you could say something like, "Oh, I've missed you today. It's so good to see you," and just kind of give them a little time to get their snack in the back seat, or ask you a question, or just have a little time to breathe. If you want more information and I would just caution, especially with younger kiddos, or actually older too, maybe more so older. They've said like, "Oh, it pisses me off when my mom does this or that," because that's not a good time for them. So just check in, like, is this a good time to talk? Or maybe that's not really seeming like it. So for me, I'm the one that's like looking in the rear view, like, hey, did you try something new in the school lunch today? Did one of your friends try something that inspired you to try carrots? I want to know all the things, but then I'm like, what are you doing? So I share that to say some kids are more available at dinner time, some bath time, some right before bed. So just know your kiddo, and be thoughtful about when you're trying to get some of those connect with your child. I better pick up the pace. Okay, I'm going to start cruising through my slides because I thought I was going to come up short on time, and then the opposite happened. So I'm going to respect your time, and I'm going to run through these slides. Okay, so explaining the basics of mental health in comparison to physical health. So we all understand physical health. It's I mean, we don't understand all of it, but if you get a diagnosis of diabetes, we learn the treatment plan. That's probably likely very complicated, but there are like rules of what comes next, and we have experts that we can see things a little bit more clearly once we kind of know what the tests say. But just like physical health relates to the well-being of your body, muscles, bones, mental health relates to the well-being of your mind, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and relationships. So if you were trying to explain to, say, a young child, that could be a good example of just kind of how to open up that, because some kiddos are like, "What's mental health?" It's more invisible, like we've said. We're going to get into this in week 3, but I just kind of threw up some ideas that might be just review for you. So when you're talking to little kiddos and they're like, "Well, what can I do about it?" Well, taking care of your mental health could look like getting good quality sleep, getting good direct sunlight with that vitamin D. That's critical. We're also low on it in Missouri and in the Midwest. Um, just a little tip I learned about vitamin D because it's so critical in mental health. Circadian rhythms are a big deal, but the most like potent sunlight for vitamin D in Missouri is from 12 to 12:20. So this is just kind of like a little tip. If you're gonna get a good dose of natural vitamin D, being outside in the sunlight from 12 to 12:20 is the best time. I'm sure the UV rays are all out and about, but as far as mental health and some of those protective factors. You could get 20 minutes of sunlight from 12 to 12:20, or you would have to get 2 hours of sunlight outside of that window. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how much you should be in the sun to get natural vitamin D. Having safe adults to talk to when you need help moving your body, so good for mental health. Meditating, eating nutritious food that fuels your body and your brain, having a healthy coping skills toolbox, and most importantly, knowing how to access it, especially in hard times. And monitoring and being aware of your inner voice is absolutely critical. Okay, what could it sound like? So in conversations, we should be non-judgmental, listening to understand, not to respond. And as parents, we always want to not be controlling, but kind of leading and guiding. So sometimes it means just kind of zipping it and just being present and not putting any of our maybe unwanted opinions in there. Compassionate and present. So these are just things I just rattled off my brain. I noticed you aren't wanting to socialize with your friends as much lately. Has anything changed that I could support you with? I noticed you are sleeping more lately. Do you feel like you just need more rest, or are you feeling anything you want to talk more about? If not right now, please know you can always come to me if you need to talk. You really used to love gymnastics, but I hear you feeling more negative about it recently. Is there something on your mind that you'd like to share about it out loud with me? I'm here for you always. So that kind of comes from all my 3 lenses, but nothing special about the words. There's some validation in there. It's very client focused or child focused. You're just being a listener. You're showing care and concern. You're calm. So these are just some thoughts I threw together in a slide. We talk about like if then with behavior sometimes, just kind of like simple statements without too many words. So these are just prompts if you see your child struggling. They don't always, these actually do kind of align, but there's so many other things you could use. But here's some examples just to kind of throw some ideas at you. If you're feeling more sad or depressed, you could do more of what you love. If you are having a hard time sleeping, you could try meditating or journaling before bed. If you're feeling disconnected from friends, you can find one small way to reconnect with maybe one of them. If you are having feelings of panic, we could explore ways to help you feel more grounded. And obviously, there's specific tools, and I'll get into more of those on week 3. If you wanted to explore this idea, say if someone was feeling like maybe they were gay, or some big idea that maybe feels outside of your toolbox, or they might need more time to explore, you could talk to a professional about how you feel. So just thinking about what is the need at hand and what's maybe like one tangible tool they could try to put something in practice. And if it doesn't work for them, there's a lot of other tools. Oh, I got to my takeaway slide. Okay, so Some takeaways. Parents can have a critical impact on their child's mental health. It can go both ways. It can be negative or positive, but it's a critical impact. So we're all here tonight. We all want to love our children as well as we are, if not better. You guys are great advocates. You're here tonight. You could be anywhere else. So we have a lot of impact on our child. Let's just think about being more intentional and more aware. A lot of power lies in our four walls. Being brave in conversations and leading by example can be really supportive. So thinking about think about your child developmentally. Remember that, I'm not saying to go teach your 5-year-old that suicide exists. I will tell you that innately we know we can do it. 5-year-olds do commit suicide. It is very rare, but it does happen. 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, it happens. It's rare, but it happens. 10-year-olds is not as rare, but it does happen. That spooks people, but I think it needs to be known. Otherwise, we're going to miss things. So thinking about leading by example, starting very young, like what are your kids? So we're modeling, how we eat in our home and kind of managing, making more healthy choices than unhealthy choices or whatever it looks like in our home. But what are we doing to support our mental health and what are we modeling at home? There's generations that are passing down. We don't have any tools. And then if we as parents don't have the tools, how do we teach our children, right? So as parents, when we have our own mental health struggles, and I encourage you not to do it when you're in a mental health crisis or when it's really slipping, I encourage you to do it every day, regular. I have a glass half full attitude, and I have to remind people like it's not rainbows and butterflies over here. I know I show up that way, but that takes intentional work. I would say throughout the entire day. Like sometimes Hunter's like, "Are you talking to yourself?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry, buddy, I am." But I'm like talking out loud. I'm filling my bucket. I'm saying positive affirmations. Like I am filling myself up before I see a client to show up best for them. So he might think it looks silly, but he knows I'm doing it. So I can't be too embarrassed. Remember that the way we speak to our children becomes their inner voice. So aside from what they're predisposed to biologically, they might have ADHD, it might run in the family, which might breed some anxiety and some overlapping things. So that might already be there, but the way we're talking to them and showing up, engaging with them in conversation every day, I believe really does become a big part of their inner voice. I see that in adult clients. I'm like, where did this come from? Where did this start? And it points back to some other people pouring information into how they feel about themselves. I'm almost done. I know we're at 7:30. It's hard to know how long it will take if I don't know, like the engagement or how long. How can you model some positive mental practices as you lead your family? We talked about that. And then are you taking good care of you? It's really hard to be our best for others when we're struggling and we will at some point struggle. 50% of the population's experiences depression at some point. I would say that is actually higher, but that's what statistics say. So we just need to be prepared. And the better we can take care of our mental health, the more emotionally available we can be for our children, the more we can learn about how to better care for ourselves mentally, the more our children are learning how to take care of themselves mentally. And I'll leave you with one last thought. When I was two, sorry. You can jump off if you need to. Two thoughts I think are worth sharing. Number one, I had this realization that suicide training I'm very passionate about. I went outside, got my vitamin D midday because it was a little stuffy in the room with hundreds and hundreds of people. Excellent Mercy training on suicide prevention. I went outside, got my vitamin D, had my lunch, and I was like, oh my goodness, we do so many things to take care of our physical health, and we still sometimes are so unhealthy as a culture at times, but we do so many things um, to stay alive. Okay. So I'm thinking about we wake up, we brush our teeth to take care of our oral health. Of course, we wear our seatbelt to work. We look both ways before we cross the street. Now, these are all things we're also teaching our children to do to stay alive and stay healthy. There's a zillion things we do all day long to stay, we're making good, healthy choices with our body a lot of the time. We go to sick visits, we go to well visits, we're calling the nurses line. There's so much we're doing for physical health, but then we have this huge gap in mental health. And I sat there thinking, as a parent, I don't see parents talking about this enough. I don't see us modeling enough as a whole. And so my challenge to us as parents and sitting in these spaces is we have to be more aware about mental health and not just hope it will get better. We have to be doing just as much for our mental health. So, before my feet hit the ground in the morning, I'm already thinking about it, because if you're well rested in the morning, if you wake up in a funk from a bad day the day before, if you just miraculously wake up a little stronger than you thought you would, how your brain kind of shows up before you even take on the day. So what are you doing to start your day with the fullest bucket you can? Because the world will throw itself at you. So how are you taking care of you before the world throws itself at you? And how are you nurturing your kiddos? Because their friends will throw stuff at them. The academics can build up. They love sports and they love being connected, but they can also get overwhelmed with the busy schedule. So we just have to be looking at how they're showing up and how we can best nurture them. I thought there was one more thing. There was one more monumental thought I had. Maybe I shared it. That's going to drive me crazy. I'll bring it to you next week. Next week, we're talking about suicide prevention and awareness. Like I said, it's too high of a threat for our 10 to 34-year-old population. So let's find ways to take better care of our mental health and to honor that hard and to get more people in spaces where that's just not an option. And then week 3 will be practical tools and strategies that I use every day in private practice to bring and invite into your own homes. And maybe it could be for you, maybe it could be for your kiddos, or maybe both. Any questions for me or comments before we go?
Well, thank you. That was great. Just,
Was it helpful? Am I on the right track and bringing my passion to life for parents? Does it feel, I know it's heavy. I don't mean for you to go and judge yourself on how you're falling short. That is not my intention. If it comes off that way, I want to be vulnerable, and that's not the way. That is not.
I didn't feel that at all. I found myself thinking about ways that I can be more intentional with my kids. So I
Okay.
think that was really helpful.
Good. That's my goal. It's like, how can we tweak things? We're all experts in our own way. And so I'll always be a lifelong learner when it comes to being an expert in this field because it's ever changing. But I couldn't care more about keeping kids here and not only just saving kids from suicide. That's my number one goal as a therapist, is to save kids from suicide. But I want kids to be happy and healthy along the journey. Maybe they're not feeling suicidal, but they might be really depressed, and they're only kids for so long. And don't get me started on social media and how much that's making them grow up even faster. But let's let them enjoy the journey. Let's help them enjoy the journey because they're managing so much more than I feel like we did when we were younger. Okay, so you know where to find me next week if you have any questions. If you have a burning question you want me to address in the next 2 weeks, take advantage of it. Let me prepare before, but I'll bring you all that I've got and help you love your kids even better than you're already loving them.
Thank you. Bye,
Okay,
Amanda.
thanks for joining me. I appreciate you guys.
Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.